This video is sponsored by the Macintosh Mortgage Group. Now, one of the struggles people face when decluttering is other people. Whether it is the gifts you've been given, the guilt you feel about decluttering sentimental-like items, or judgment from others. Then, of course, there is the ongoing problem of the people that we live with. Now, if this is your first time here, my name is Robyn. I help overwhelmed people simplify their lives through organization, productivity, and creating an environment where they can thrive. Now grab your tea and let's go. One of the best things you can ask yourself when you are decluttering, when you have guilt over something that involves other people is, am I keeping this for me? Now, this of course pertains when items are being kept solely because you are feeling guilty about decluttering it. I'm not talking about keeping things that are other people's things, or perhaps the off chance that you are saving something for a child who might be moving out in the next year and maybe you're saving it for them. I am talking about when you are decluttering past gifts, things that have been handing down to you or anything like that. Then you need to ask yourself, am I keeping this for me? Decluttering gifts can be so hard. It can honestly get messy. Gift giving can be a real struggle, the bane of many people's existence. I personally struggle with gift giving. I feel like I don't think that it should be an obligation, and that over time, a lot of us have felt that way. And we have actually given people gifts and then people feel bad about it. Or when we're gift shopping, we think, okay, they will like this. Maybe they will like this. I don't know. I just have to give them something. I don't think that that is in the spirit of gift giving, but I want to recognize that quite often when we are giving gifts, it is not because we truly feel like it is the item we are giving is going to add value to someone's life. Even if we feel that way, and maybe if it doesn't, we shouldn't be upset when people are decluttering. So sometimes we are given things and they are just meant for a certain season in life. For example, maybe it's when you have little kids and it's an item that you keep, maybe just like a breastfeeding pillow or something like that. You don't need that for the whole rest of your life. You could save it to hand it down to somebody, but that seems really silly to hold onto, to hand something down to somebody that could be years and decades away. Another example could be maybe a piece of fitness equipment that you loved at one point of time, but maybe you're just not into road cycling or something like that anymore. We need to recognize that some items are only useful during a particular season of life. Now, sometimes we are given something by someone, we've enjoyed it for a season, but it's time to declutter. And I think that is perfectly okay. Now, there comes a time when we need to let go of things, gifts included, and quite often we feel bad about that. Now, I think that quite often the gift giver is okay that you're not going to keep the thing that they gave you forever. And quite honestly, if they have a problem with that, that's not okay. No gift giver should be upset that you do not want to keep something for the rest of your life. One example of what you could say to somebody is, I loved this item, but we just don't use it anymore. And I feel like somebody else could just benefit from it much more than we are right now. Just having it in storage isn't really serving anybody. I love that you thought of me with this gift. Thank you so much, etc., etc. You fill in the blanks. Now, say your mom, for example, buys you a sweater for your birthday and you just don't quite like that item. Maybe it's just not your style. And you're like, okay, you just throw it in your closet and you never wear it. Why are you doing that? What purpose does it serve? I think that quite often we don't want to let people we don't know that we don't like an item. And I don't think that, depending on the person, whether or not it's worth the battle. And sometimes you could say, I'm just going to declutter it. If you're not going to wear it, there is no point in keeping it. When I was a kid, I honestly think I was like 7 or 8, and my mom gave me a jean vest with a matching skirt. It was denim and it had paint splatter all over it. Now, it was the 80s, but this just did not feel like me. Even at that age, I was like, this just does not feel like something that I want to wear. I really wasn't into dresses at the time, and I just felt uncomfortable. Now, she respected that. I even to this day, I know she was disappointed, but she never tried to pressure me into wearing it. We definitely kept it for a long time, and I think she was hoping maybe I would grow, or I would grow to like it. I mean, I was small forever, so it would have fit for a long time, but we did eventually declutter it because it just wasn't something I was going to wear. So ultimately, the person who is giving you the gift should want you to be happy. If being happy involves decluttering something that they gave you, then that is okay. You should not be keeping extra things around because you feel guilty. And the people who love you enough to give you a gift should want you to be happy too, and they can just chalk it up to they don't like it or they don't use it anymore. You could always offer to give it back to them. Maybe they would like that. The other thing is, you don't have to tell people when you declutter things. If, for example, you have a family member who comes and visits and they say, where's that blah, blah, blah that I gave you? You can just say, you know what, it just wasn't something we were using, and so we thought somebody else could use it. Boom, end of story. You also don't have to give excuses, just so you know. This is your life. You are the boss. So I'm going to get to sentimental items in just a second, but first I want to tell you about the Macintosh mortgage group. Now, we remortgaged last year and they were absolute pros. We did it right around Christmas time and they were so awesome. They didn't care what day it was. They helped us out. There were a couple of problems with our last company. They were like, no problem, we took care of it for you. And I was like, you guys are the best. So right now, if you remortgage with them and you live in Canada, they will give you a free enrollment in my Simplify Your Home course. So check out those details below. Now, sentimental like items can be one of the hugest things that make it hard for people to declutter. And keep in mind why you want to declutter. It's so that your life can be better. You should not be feeling guilty when you are decluttering. Now, sometimes people will hand down things to us that were theirs. This can often be because they feel better decluttering something of theirs to somebody that they know. I think we've all done this. We hand down our kids' clothing to people that we know because it makes us feel better. It's like there's still like that connection with those things. I think that really truly is quite an interesting phenomenon among people. The other thing though is sometimes we have family members who have had things handed down to them and then they hand them down to us. Now, this is a really interesting thing because if you don't want the items that they're handing down, you need to let them know right away. Often they feel bad about it. And I know that I went through this recently with my family when they were decluttering my grandparents' house and they just so desperately wanted family to take everything. I mean, they wanted all the stuff gone. And I think in some ways they were like, whoever can take it, take it. But there were certain things that they wanted to see go to family. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm just not taking items that I don't want. I know it sounds maybe kind of harsh, but then it becomes my problem and I am faced with extra clutter and nobody needs extra clutter. Items handed down to you by the hander downer doesn't need to feel the guilt of decluttering themselves. It makes them feel better by handing it down to you, and that is not okay. So for example, maybe your parent shows up at your house with a box full of stuff that was once your aunt's who has passed on. You need to be very honest and just say, I am sorry, this is just not something that I want. And they might say, well, you know what? I put it all in the car and I brought it over here. And you can be like, well, next time, maybe just call me first. It is completely fine for people to check with you if you want an item, but they should not be making you feel bad for not taking something. Or maybe you have a box of things sitting in your house that have been handed down to you. Maybe it already got past that initial phase and you feel guilty because it was your great aunt, etc. The thing is, I don't want you holding on to things that aren't serving you. You need to recognize that if you don't want the items, you need to just let them go. Always remember, somebody at a thrift store or something will probably benefit from those items. So just let them go. You are doing something good. You are doing a service. It is not fair for you to have these things around forever. Now, another thing that people can run into is when a family member or a friend doesn't actually approve of all of the decluttering and minimizing that you are doing. So maybe you've been on a kick, you've been decluttering for a while and you are just like, woohoo, this is great, but you have some friends or family who just don't approve. Now, I think this is a very interesting topic. Now, I think that I have a friend who has a parent who doesn't approve of the amount of decluttering that my friend is doing. And I think this is a very interesting thing because this friend is not going to extremes. She truly is just keeping the things that she likes, the things that serve her. And she is feeling incredible with the results that she's getting. But her parent is just not approving. And I think that part of it could be that maybe jealousy, maybe they feel like they should declutter, but they just haven't explored why they struggle with clutter. And I think ultimately it often comes down to the Swedish death cleaning instincts, which you know I love. So there's the hoarding instinct, which is just keeping a lot of things just in case because it just makes us feel better to have things. The clutter instinct, which is having things around us so we can see them, that makes us feel better. And then there is the fear of death, which I always feel the most kinship with. I get that, especially when it comes to like decluttering things from my kids or whatever. It just reminds us that nothing is forever. When you have a friend or family member who is not approving of you decluttering, I think that quite often they feel guilty about the amount of clutter that they have, or they just wish that they could. So maybe just have some conversations about why you feel so good decluttering and why you think that it is good in the long run. You don't even have to mention them at all. Quite often people will make that connection. And if they don't like it, you can just say, oh, well, sorry, and maybe just try not to talk about it with them. I mean, the thing is, you don't have to share absolutely everything with everybody. Now, another thing that can be a real challenge when it comes to decluttering is family that you live with. We maybe have a spouse who doesn't want to declutter, or we have kids that don't want to declutter, or we live with a parent who doesn't want to declutter. I hear these things all of the time. The best advice I can give you is that you need to declutter your stuff first, always and every time. Never start with your kids' stuff. Never start with your spouse's stuff. Declutter your things. If it's been handed down to you by somebody else, it's now yours and you can declutter it. If you have a family member who is really resistant to you decluttering anything, like I said, start with your stuff, start with your clothes, and then you can move on to common items and say, do we use this? Have we used this in the last year? Have we used this in the last 5 years? Sometimes, and I know you might not want to hear this, but sometimes people actually need some form of therapy. They actually need to talk to a professional about why they have so much trouble letting go of things, in particular if these things are causing an actual problem. Now, an example of an actual problem could just be that clutter stresses out you and maybe it stresses out them. I think that sometimes we have a clear space and people will not realize that the clear space feels good, but for some people, the clear space feels bad. Those would be like the clutter instinct people who maybe grew up with not enough things around them or food insecurity or things like that. So it gives them a sense of peace. This can be a challenge because we have different personalities with different experiences in a household and we have to learn to coexist. And having a lot of clutter around us is not good for most of us. So sometimes you do need to seek therapy, and it is so good to talk to a therapist every now and then to just talk about anything. So that is my advice for you. I feel like it needs to be said. Now check out this video here all about decluttering sentimental items. This is my minimizing playlist. Thank you so much for watching and I will see you next time.